You can order an item now at Amazon and get it in 30 minutes if you so choose. Everybody struggles in their job. Always. I know I did, right? And at times still do. I started in Amazon in 1999 and the company started in 1995. Go find the ugliest, hardest problem that the company has and get involved with it.
Welcome to Supply Chain Optimizers, the show that uncovers the controversial strategies and candid stories of innovators and disruptors from some of the world's largest supply chain operations. Let's cut through the noise and optimize your logistics and supply chain, one bold idea at a time. Today on Supply Chain Optimizers, we're thrilled to welcome Arthur L. Valdez Jr., one of our most influential supply chain executives in the industry. Arthur has over 3 decades of building and transforming global supply chains at companies like Amazon and Target, and has most recently led the customer-focused innovation at Starbucks. Arthur has shaped the way retailers deliver speed, efficiency, and exceptional customer experiences. Beyond his corporate achievements, he mentors first-generation students and serves on several boards, including Advanced Auto Parts and Shipped. In this episode, we'll explore Arthur's journey from scaling Amazon's international logistics to reinventing Target's stores as hub model, and hear the vision for the supply chain technology and talent. Arthur, so thrilled to have you here. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Diego. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
So just opening question, can you walk us through your career path and what led you to specialize in the retail supply chain and logistics?
Yeah, I think, Diego, to be very honest with you, I share a lot with people is operations is something that I've done real early in my life. My family owned a delivery service in Pueblo, Colorado. And in that process, I was part of the family labor. So I got to do sortation of packages and deliver them, pick up, and be a part of the family business, which I really enjoyed. And I think that's what influenced me then when I went to school and graduated from Colorado State, that I got a production operations management degree. And I was very fortunate, after many interviews of different types of companies, I was very fortunate to get an interview with Walmart and work at one of their first distribution centers in Colorado. And I think that's when I first walked into that building and I smelled the cardboard, I saw the forklifts, I heard the conveyor systems, all those things said I was home. And this is the kind of job that I wanted to do long term. So, and that influenced me to be in retail operations from there on, and then make decisions to go work in Mexico City and make decisions to work internationally with Amazon as well. So that anchor around early days of operations as a team member in the family business influenced me quite a bit.
Yeah, it's such a passionate career path, right? And part of the reason this resonates with me so much is I have a bit of a similar story. The reason I started the company that I now head, the Steya, was a very personal family history, right? My family is from the north of Mexico. Grew up all over cane sugar fields. So the thing that I enjoy the most in life is the cane sugar field and the factory, right? The sugar manufacturing and the transportation and the truck and the train and the boat. So yeah, it's such a passionate thing that one grows up around. I have to ask, you did some of the very early days of Walmart in Mexico, and you did mention living in Mexico City. So please tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my first year working at a distribution center for Walmart, Lee Scott, who ultimately became the president and CEO of Walmart, was the vice president of distribution. And he came in one day as he would to visit the distribution center and jokingly said, "Hey, anybody want to go to Mexico City? We're opening up a new distribution center." And he thought he said it jokingly because everybody else in the room was good old boys from Arkansas. As you know, Walmart is Arkansas, right? Except for this 22-year-old boy in the corner that said, "Hey, I'll go," right? And he looked at me and said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, let's talk after the meeting." So then he and I talked, and I gave him my background of, growing up in a Mexican-American Cuban family and being influenced by the language and operations and things like that, that would be something that I would be very interested in. And Diego, 6 weeks later, I was on a plane with a luggage and my golf clubs, headed to Mexico City, where I lived in Palmas area. I was 22 years old, and Walmart, this was their first taste of bringing executives to an international city. So I had my own penthouse, I had my own company car, right? I was helping in the distribution center there. So at 22 years old, I'm thinking, this is it. I'm done. I made it, right? Which was fantastic. So it taught me a lot. And fortunately, also, I met my señorita there, who's my wife of 30 years now, from Morelia, Michoacan. And we've been together with two beautiful boys that we've been raising. So that's how Mexico's influenced me in early part of my life.
I love hearing this, Arthur. And maybe, you know, what would be interesting for our audience, right? It's also very cross-border kind of professionals. What maybe cultural differences or operating procedures, anything that really stood out to you in the differences between how things are done in Walmart USA versus Walmart in Mexico?
I think the best way to explain this, Diego, is an example. That way people really get it and resonate. People from Mexico will get it. People from the US will get it. So Walmart was a multi-billion-dollar company already in the early 90s. And this is 1992 when I was there in Mexico City. And we needed to start up a second shift operation because the Superama stores, the Aurora stores, it was hard to deliver during the day. You had to deliver the goods during the night. As you know, the traffic in Mexico City is crazy, right? So I needed to open up a second shift operation. But we were in Cuautitlan, north of the city, and very far away, and public transportation stops during the day, right? At night, about 6, 7 o'clock, it's hard to get public transportation. So I went to the executives in Arkansas during this time and said, hey, look, if I'm going to start a second shift operation, I have to buy a bus and hire a driver, and they're going to have to go pick up all of our employees to come to the distribution center to work for the replenishment process. And they were like, we don't do that. Yeah, why were you going to do that? We've never had to do that, right? And I'm like, well, if you want these stores to get their goods during the night, we're going to have a second shift operation that processes. And I said, this is the only way to do it because there is no infrastructure to get the employees. So I think, one, as a young leader for myself, and then two, helping a large organization like that learn how you had to do business outside of the country, their successful country of the United States, it was going to require you to know the culture and know the people and know what it took to drive the change and the transformation or the business growth that you wanted in country. So I use that example because I think that's what it taught me. So now that I've done business worldwide in Asia and in Europe and different places, Diego, it's the same thing, right? People are people. You got to know who they are, where they are, so you can help them help you what you need to do in those communities and in those countries. So that's the best example I think I could give you because it's the one that resonates with me as real life example.
Yeah, something that I'm, personally very grateful about my own career is, how I got the similar taste to you, right? Of different cultures, especially in the US and Mexico. One of my funniest, favorite kind of quotes is in the US, in the concept of logistics, right? In the US, you tend to think no news is good news. That's quite the opposite in Mexico, right? No news is normally pretty bad news. So I love these type of stories where cultural differences show up. And maybe, Arthur, speaking of cultural differences, you went on from Walmart into Amazon, right? You're one of those characters that has had the privilege of working at the two biggest, right, retailers in the world. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that transition and what differences you saw between Walmart and Amazon.
I think Jeff Bezos early on recognized that he needed operational knowledge and experience. And he pulled a large number of team members out of Walmart in the late 90s, early 2000s to help him grow the business. What we identified and found that the traditional distribution that Walmart is very famous for and created and innovated against was not going to work in this e-commerce environment. And just a couple of simple examples, right? In those early days, we would get merchandise from the suppliers that were used to shipping to Walmart stores, and it would be assortment inside one box of a case that they could sell in a store that way. But when you're selling individual units to a person online, they're not wanting that full case. They're wanting the individual special unit, right? So we had to learn how to be not only distribution, but we had to learn how to be manufacturing and fulfillment, kind of a three-pronged approach towards the creation of Amazon, which created different systems, different process, different technology. And what I'm very proud of, Diego, is that being so early on in the days of Amazon is I got to help build and see what Amazon is today, the direction that we had to take and the problems that we had to solve to truly become an e-commerce platform that people trusted, that they came and put their credit card on and bought purchases, right? And it's hard to believe today, but back then people would tell us, "Oh, I'm never going to give you my credit card to buy online," right? That's crazy. You're not going to get that, right? Well, that's a natural and simple thing to do today, right? But back then, that was hard for people to think about. So how did we create a customer experience starting on the website that gave people trust in how to use the website? Then they needed to trust that the goods would come to them on time and the way they ordered it, right? So all of those disciplines within customer experience that started with the website that led with delivery, I was very fortunate to be a part of in the early days.
And just for reference for our audience, how early days? When did you start at Amazon?
I started in Amazon in 1999.
That's right.
And the company started in 1995.
Yeah, man, fascinating experience. You went on to have multiple roles, right? You were VP of operations around fulfillment centers, transportation, supply chain, eventually vice president of worldwide operations at Amazon. So in those 16 years that you spent at Amazon, maybe what were the biggest operational challenges you faced specifically when entering new countries?
Well, I'm going to give you the key ingredient that was the secret sauce and it's out there and people will make the connection, so it's okay to talk about, is that in order for Amazon to be what it is today, Amazon needed to perfect the capability of sortation. Sortation as a supply chain logistics capability is the heartbeat of what happens at Amazon, right? So as the goods come from the suppliers, you have to sort it according to sizing. You have to sort it according to this assortment that I'm telling you is mixed, right? You have to put it away into bins that can hold the product and the size of that product at the right levels for the picking to occur. When you start to pick multiple items for the one customer order, they're spread throughout the building and the operation. So you have to sort those to get them to one box in a fast way, right? So the key ingredient that we constantly focused on in building of the technology and the capabilities at Amazon was around sortation, because we knew if we could do it faster at the level of accuracy that we needed to, we could scale any operation in throughput and capacity that we needed for meeting the customer promise delivery dates, right? So sortation was critical. So that's what led to what Amazon has today, which is the robotic solutions in their fulfillment operations and centers, right? Because as you're touching millions of units per hour and you're needing to sort that, you can't hire enough humans, enough people to do that for you, right? So you have to invent and create technology and capability around robotic solutions that help you move those goods at high speed through your operation. A typical operation at Amazon today, in a 24-hour period, is shipping somewhere around 2 million units or 1 million shipments a day, right? You can't have that many humans doing that, right? So you got to be able to do that with the support of robotic solutions. So that sortation theme is really what we worked on, which created the scaling of what we have today at Amazon.
That's a very interesting notion, right? How this KPI maybe for sortation, and I would imagine some KPI around boxes per hour. Like, I don't know what was the KPI there for sortation, but and maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. But you somehow discovered that it was really tied to fulfilling the promise you had for your customers, therefore obsessing over sortation specifically.
Yeah, so just to kind of give you an idea of the performance when you say KPIs. So in 1999, Dave, it used to take us 4 days from the time a customer would give us the order online. It used to take us 4 days to ship it out of the building. And we knew that in order to keep up with the brick and mortar retail solutions that are out there where people can just go same day to go into a store and buy it, we needed to be able to do this in a 15 to 20 minute time frame, because we were going to make promises to customers on 30-minute delivery at some point, right? So that kind of thinking started way back in 1999. And today, because of this technology and this enhancements that have been made over the years, you can order an item now at Amazon and get it in 30 minutes if you so choose, right? So that kind of trajectory, I think, would be the best way to articulate what you're asking, which is, how did you go over that period of time and think through the technology growth and the customer experience needs of the business?
And it's very interesting to, hear it from you, right? In the early days at Amazon and, in Walmart, and how very different KPIs and challenges each of these operations have, right? And again, right, like the two monsters in the world, right? And how very different their operations inside warehouses and internationally and with distribution is to have. It's a fascinating topic.
So the secondary topic to that, I think, would be good for you and your listeners to understand is that you can sort it if you have it, meaning is the inventory there, right? So that became one of the big reasons why I also looked at the Target opportunity as a big one for me to help, because at Amazon, they solved the Amazon national fulfillment model, shipping from large locations into big cities. Well, the Target stores, 85% of the US population lives within 5 miles of a Target store, right? So the stores as hubs model that I know and that your listeners may reference and research was utilizing the store as a fulfillment operation because the inventory was so close to the customer, right? So Amazon always was on the sortation side and always trying to make sure that the inventory was placed in the fulfillment centers correctly to minimize shipping cost. Well, if your inventory is already next to the customer and you can minimize that shipping cost already, now what you're doing, you're playing the game of having the right inventory inside those stores that the customers want, right? And that's now the stores as hubs model, is that you can order today, have a Target.com order for the selection and assortment that they have, and you can order it by 10 noon that day, and they'll have it delivered to you by 6 or 7 that night, because the investment that Target made in their transportation and their sortation, that is local sortation, right? Local delivery, is so much faster than having to bring it from these large fulfillment centers into the city. So that is the advantage that I saw when you think about local fulfillment versus national fulfillment, and why the stores as hubs model is so good for Target, because the inventory is so close to the customer.
This is a very interesting, problem to solve. And I wonder, Arthur, if what's more challenging, and if Target thought about it in these terms, right? Is it more about trying to accurately predict what customers are going to request in each of the stores, right? And have a very good prediction model of down to the SKU, what's going to be the demand for this particular SKU at this particular store, right? And maybe you have the data to pull that off. Or is it really more of a logistics and delivery kind of problem where, hey, it doesn't really matter what they order, we're going to move it around? Or maybe a combination of the two?
It's a combination. You nailed it, right? You nailed it. It's a combination, right? So let's go to the Amazon national fulfillment model for a second, because we didn't always get the inventory right. We knew based off of where the inventory was, what promised delivery date we could give the customer, because we would go get inventory from one fulfillment center and bring it to another fulfillment center to complete the customer order, because the cost of shipping with the either today's Amazon logistics model or with UPS or FedEx is so much more expensive than the transfer cost of moving that inventory between the operations, right? So try and be good at predicting, to your point, Diego. When you can't be that good at predicting and you haven't solved it to the level you need, how do you get good with your logistics movements to move the inventory to where it's needed to complete the customer order, right? So that's the Amazon national fulfillment model. In the Target local model, yes, for sure, it's still about prediction, right? Absolutely. But what's nice about that is that you can, because the shipping cost is so much cheaper, you may have a 3-unit order for a customer at a Target.com. And there might be 3 stores within Seattle, for example, where I'm at today, and each store may have 1 unit. It's so much cheaper for those 3 stores, because the proximity that they're in, to ship those 3 units separately to the customer, which is not always ideal, but based off of the fast delivery can happen, right? Then the national fulfillment model, where you're having to ship 3 different boxes, UPS or FedEx, they're going to cost you $2 to $3 more per shipment because you don't have that proximity to the customer, right? So it's there's a lot of advantages to be local, and there's a lot of advantages to be national because of the density and the high selection and assortment that you can carry. But for the right items locally, you can be very cost effective and you can be fast.
Listen, yeah, I'm really appreciative of how different retailers solve these types of problems, right? Which leads me, Arthur, to the next question, right? To tell us a little bit about culture and technology, right? What do I mean by that? Like Jeff Bezos, right, very famously wanted to have Amazon be the most customer-centric company in the world, or some words like that to that extent, right? So that's the culture component, right? And obviously Target, a beloved retailer, right? Everywhere in the US, people obsess over it. You cannot walk into a Target store and spend less than $200, at least from personal experience. I know that, right? And it's really a culture thing that permeates, right? From the CEO all the way to people, in warehouses. So when I talk about culture, right, that's the first question. How does culture permeate, again, right, from the top to all the way down to the operations?
Diego, it's a great question. It's a great question. And I will tell you, living the life of two opposite companies in the way they think about your question. Amazon thinks about technology beats culture all day long. Target thinks about it, culture beats technology all day long, right? Totally opposite, right? And I think over time, and I'll share with you my predictions of what I think is going to happen. But over time, I believe, especially with where we are going with AI and the capabilities of machine learning and system configuration to be driven in the decision making, right? I think technology will be more efficient and create the right customer experience over culture into the future more and more, okay? Which is why companies like Target have to figure it out. They have to figure it out and say, okay, is it always going to be the selection we have in the store and the great people we have in the store that are making the sale? Or at some point, are we going to have to get better in technology and the efficiency we run our business that creates the right outcome for the customer? I think they're going to have to get better because there's one word that I think that the world continues to focus on because of just how our lives are changing, and it's called convenience. Convenience matters, right? The world is getting harder to live in for families, for kids who are going to school, for people who are working, right? And the more and more that convenience and speed of what I call adoption or speed of getting your products, right, need to happen, technology is going to have to be first and foremost. And those companies out there that are not investing in that today, whether that be through AI or robotic solutions or investments in predictive tools, I think they're going to suffer and they're going to be by the wayside over time.
Wow, in a way, you kind of answered both questions I had around culture and technology and the future of what this looks like, right? And obviously, companies need to have these investments. Like it's no longer a question. Leads me to the next question, right? What's exciting in this space for you, right? You obviously mentioned AI, and that's something that people mention quite a bit. But what else is exciting for you these days in terms of technology?
I think when you think of where all of these different companies are at different growth stages as well as technology stages, right? What Amazon has, and I think Walmart too, to be very honest with you, and I haven't been in a Walmart operation for a number of years, but I will tell you from what I'm seeing from the outside looking in, Walmart and Amazon both really understand the end-to-end system connectivity. So the connective tissue between process and systems that must occur in order to create the efficiency in the business, right? And I think what's exciting right now is that when you think about where AI is going as far as machine learning and being able to get the signals of data from customer experience or from user experience, all those signals are going to be feeding tools that are going to be configured to be able to react and create decision making for enhanced convenience, right? So I'll give you an example, right? You, in a normal logistics process, you have supplier, you have distribution center, you have transportation, and you have delivery location, right? Many companies today, outside of Walmart and Amazon, have disconnected systems that are managing that entire system, right? And they're not communicating and they're not messaging each other to create the right consistency and efficiency in the overall outcome, which is that the customer is satisfied with whatever service you're providing, right? So more and more, these companies are going to need that connective tissue technology-wise to manage their end-to-end systems. So I get excited about looking at companies today that are looking for managing and building innovation around that connectivity. And I'll give you an example of what that would look like. So let's say you're getting demand signals from a store, and those demand signals from the store are feeding an inventory management system that doesn't require human touch, but is a configuration to say, when this item hits this level of inventory level, we want you to reorder. And the AI tools make the reorder happen. And when the reorder happens, it also sets a date of pickup in transportation from the supplier. So the supplier knows what day they have to get it ready. The transportation truck knows when it has to pick it up, and it also knows when it has to be delivered, right? Today, Diego, in most companies, all of those things are managed by different people in different groups, right? Which leads to inaccuracy and disconnect in the overall flow of the system. So I get excited about companies that are starting to come up today that are working towards the connectivity of all that to make it more efficient for the consumer.
This is a big recurring topic. This is challenging in a number of ways because you have a data format issue, you have a multiple parties and stakeholders issues, right? It's very hard to force your vendor, not to say your customer, God forbid, right, to change the way that communicate with you, right, and how they send and exchange things with you. You have, data, the stored data at different levels of the company. So it really is a very challenging problem to solve, right? This is a recurring topic that I hear about constantly. Shifting a little bit to your current supply chain at Starbucks role, right? It seems like it's more of like a pure supply chain kind of role, right? How do you approach this, as you call it yourself, right? Some of these customer-centric initiatives. What's different about this new role? How do you approach it? What's, the same as before? Anything you can tell us about that?
No, absolutely. So, and just for your listeners, I'll be exiting out of the Starbucks business here by the end of the year and have appointed a backfill to take over the role that I'm working on that now. But one of the key things I recognize and why I got excited about this role at Starbucks was that it was all about process and technology. And they weren't thinking that way. So they were allowing me to come in and help innovate and help them think differently around how to do this. And it anchored around the customer problem. And what I believed, and I think what most people hear Brian Nichol now reinforcing, is that the problem was that the Starbucks customer inside the store was having to wait too long to be served. And a lot of times when they were waiting, they were also not getting what they wanted because the right inventory was not inside the store, okay? And to be honest with you, Diego, the problem is that there was improper prioritization in the way that the baristas were serving the customers inside the store because they had such a large digital demand to deal with that there was no prioritization and no sequencing, once again, back to sortation, right, on how to think about the in-store customer versus the drive-through customer and the digital customer, right? So that in-store customer ended up waiting and waiting because all the two channels were consumed with too much capacity, okay? So creating algorithms, and we have acquired a company out of Indiana to help do this, but creating algorithms that actually do the prioritization for the in-store customer to be served first, and then the capacity that's allocated after that to drive through and digital, and making sure that we're giving still good promises to the customer, but using technology to do that. So how does that improvement of wait time then help the supply chain? Or what does the supply chain need to do to support that, right? Well, first and foremost, The supply chain needs to have the right inventory in the store to support all the needs of the service model inside the store. And still today, but we're working and building the systems, the point of sale systems are not communicating with the upstream supply chain tools to tell the supply chain what is needed inside the store. So what's happening today is that the supply chain tools are trying to be predictive based off of store velocity history to have the right inventory in the store and getting it wrong, right? Because we need the actual data to be able to get it right. So once again, back to what we just talked about in the end-to-end connective tissue all the way back to the supplier and the systems that are being managed, that's what Starbucks needs to do. They have to build the end-to-end system that's in service of the customer inside the store, me having what they need when they want it, at the time they want it, and then making all of what I like to call the operational clock, right? The operational clock all working to meet that next service model inside the store so that the customers inside the store are satisfied and have a great experience.
This is I don't know if this is true or not. Maybe you can help me confirm it, Arthur. But I did hear some like one day that Amazon kind of like has this service level promise, right? And they say we will satisfy customers 98% of times, right? Our error rate can only be up to 2%. Therefore, if that's the promise that we've made to our customers, then what's the best way and cheapest, fastest, et cetera, to operate this whole network, right? And I do think that a lot of companies have to adopt that mindset or are trying to adopt that mindset, right? We've promised this to our customer. Therefore, what's the optimization behind the promise and not the other way around, right? Like start always with the customer in mind.
That's exactly right, Diego. And I think more than anything, if you're outside of a company like Amazon that's doing that, you think, wow, that's great. But what happens inside the company is that it's a maniacal focus on the defect. When you're not able to meet that promise, why are we not meeting that promise? And then collecting the data, problem solving, doing deep dives to really understand the root causes to get that to 100%. Now, will 100% ever be achieved? No, it won't, right? It won't. But working towards that kind of mentality is critical.
We could go all day talking about algorithms and how I do believe in a world where mostly supply chain decisions and logistics decisions will be mostly done by algorithms, right? That will become smarter and smarter and smarter, right? That's something that I really do see happening in the short term and medium term, maybe. But I also wanted to touch a little bit on kind of like your outside of your work activities, right? You've been a very vocal mentor for first generation and minority students, right? Tell me, right? What specifically within the supply chain talent and retaining, training, recruiting this type of talent, what strategies have been helpful for you in the past 2 years?
Yeah, no, very good. So first and foremost, I want to make sure I share, which is very important to me, is that I am a first generation college graduate, right? I was very fortunate that the family supported me, and I went to Colorado State University and got through and became an example for my family, who have now, we've had many graduates after me within the family, which has been fantastic to see, right? But I think that what that influenced me is also what I had to learn as somebody who didn't understand the college experience, right? And how hard it was. And if you are a minority and somebody that you have to go on campus for the first time, and the majority of the people on campus are Caucasian, right? How do you get in and fit in? And how do you work through feeling as if you belong there, right? And I think more than anything, yes, financially, I personally help and have a foundation of fund at Colorado State University with my wife. But more importantly for us, it's helping these students, these individuals who don't have that kind of understanding, how to stay on campus. And when the family's pulling you back because it's a single parent that needs help, or the brothers and sisters need somebody to come earn some money so they can eat, right? How do you help them through those situations to know that what they're doing on campus is so important for the future, and being able to mentor them and help them understand what are their options, what's their optionality to be able to stay on campus and get their degree, to be able to help the family even more over time. So I think, Diego, in all honesty, that's probably more important, because those are things I had to learn, I hate to say on my own, on campus because the family always was there for me to support me with whatever I needed to stay there. But a lot of these things I needed to learn on my own. So that's why mentoring these first generation students, as well as providing scholarships where I can on campus, is how we want to try and help and give back.
A very inspirational leader. You've been through very much everything, right? Started early at Amazon. You were internationally at Walmart in Mexico and opening up other international markets for Amazon and Walmart. Then through Target and trying out a totally new model of store hubs, right? And then now Starbucks, very global perspective. And with all you do for these first generation students, maybe what I want to ask here is a couple of leadership questions, right? In your very long career, what really, going through the pandemic, everything, right? You've lived through everything in the past 25 years. What leadership lessons stand out for you, right? Guiding supply chains, guiding teams, anything you want to tell us?
I think it's really two, and I've said these quite a bit because I think they impacted me the most as an individual, is first and foremost, everybody struggles in their job. Always. I know I did, right? And at times still do. And what I've been anchored towards, which is okay to do, and I hope your listeners really take this away as something that they feel comfortable with over time, is you have to ask for help when you're struggling, right? When you're not making it. And when you ask for help, it's because you know you need that help. And it's not about something else that's occurring. It's about you. And when you make it about you and asking for help, people just surround that and they come running and they figure it out, right? Humans want to help, right? If they know what they can do to help. And asking for that help is a critical leadership lesson that I learned a long time ago, to ask for help. The second one for me, Diego, is that you're not going to learn who you are as a person, as a leader, as a contributor on the team, unless you're willing to really do the hard stuff, right? Those individuals that want to only do the easy stuff, they're holding back their opportunity to really know about themselves and learn about what you're capable of and what you have to develop for. So my advice to young leaders and people who are working through the ranks is go find the ugliest, hardest problem that the company has and get involved with it, right? Because it's going to teach you everything about you and it's going to help you learn about the company. And oh, by the way, because you get over it and you learn it, it's also going to help you compete with your peer group very differently, right? So don't be afraid to ask for help and do the toughest job, because those two things will help you in your career tremendously.
Arthur, closing question, and I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. What's exciting for you in the next 5 years, right? Maybe in terms of technology, maybe in terms of your own leadership. What's exciting for you in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think I'm at a point, Diego, where I've really come to peace that what's exciting for me now is being able to share my experience and knowledge with others, like the event you and I are doing right now. I love this, Diego, because I'm able to share history and people understand where we are today, but helping them learn, how did we get here, right? What was the hardships and the things that happened in the late 90s with Amazon that led to where we are today, right? So I like sharing that. So helping leaders solve problems on their own, they have to do it themselves, right? But helping them understand how they might be able to do it and influencing and teaching and mentoring that is really exciting for me and what I'd like to do over the next 5-10 years.
Arthur, again, thank you so very much for being here today. Really enjoyed the conversation, really enjoyed all of your lessons, and thank you so very much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Diego. I enjoyed it very much.
That's a wrap on today's deep dive with supply chain optimizers. If you found value in our controversial tactics and data-driven stories, don't forget to hit follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Have a burning question or want to share your own optimization success? Connect with me, Diego Solorzano, on LinkedIn, or for more information on how we can help you transform your supply chain and logistics operations, visit thesteya.com. Thanks for listening.